how is all of this going to look in 50 years' time? You know, when the anger and the outrage has died down about some cornstarch being put on Stonehenge, it will look very reasonable what we're asking. Either we end the fossil fuel era or the fossil fuel era is going to end us. My name's James Skeet. I'm a spokesperson for Just Stop Oil. I predominantly handle media for the campaign. I think that's probably the main reason I'm speaking to you today.
Certainly, yeah. And do you mind just running me through the action that took place today?
So we had two Just Stop Oil supporters go to Stonehenge. They attempted to put some orange cornstarch on the stones, created quite a big cloud of smoke, looked quite visually interesting. But I suppose the key thing to take away from this is that there's no permanent damage to the stones. It will wash off in the rain.
And so why did ye as a group pick Stonehenge for the action today?
Well, I think it's sort of important for us to be thinking about I think when we have these sorts of conversations, it's always worth us grounding ourselves in kind of like what the situation is right now. And though I think that the action has been like quite shocking to many people, I think we need to be considering, you know, what is it that's more shocking? Is it a bit of orange cornstarch on a treasured monument, or is it the fact that governments are, you know, committed to burning more oil, gas, and coal when we're just coming off the back of 12 straight months of record temperatures that are leading to fires, floods, crop failures worldwide? It's going to lead to millions of people killed and displaced in the years to come. What's more shocking?
Sure. But I'm just curious, with the previous actions that Just Stop Oil have had, there's been a subtext to it, right? Whether it's like spray painting Tufton Street or whether it's spray painting or throwing paint or soup on paintings that are in museums that somehow benefit from continued exploitation of fossil fuels. I'm just curious where the link, if there is a subtext to Stonehenge, or if
we all value our treasured monuments. I think it's important for us to get that feeling of shock and dismay when we see things that we love at risk, because that's the feeling that we need to be really be emotionally connecting with, given the situation that we see with the climate in its current form and where it looks like the trajectory of things are heading, right? So we are, as I said, 12 straight months of record temperatures. We have seen 17 months of record rainfall. We see crop failure worldwide. That is leading to, we're sort of heading to a situation now where we're looking at 2 billion people forced out of the conditions suitable to support human life and 1 billion people on the move by 2030. That's 1 in 8 people. I think we need to be thinking about what is our world going to look like in the face of that, and really start emotionally connecting with the gravity of the situation.
Sure. So is the end goal of actions like today to kind of impress upon the public rather than on politicians that there needs to be immediate action, and to kind of mobilize the public rather than pushing for political action from the top, make it a grassroots thing rather than from top down?
I mean, I think there's two strands to this. There's disruption and then there's dialogue. So as a result of the action that we've undertaken today, now we're having a conversation, and we've managed to get the issue of an international fossil fuel treaty to the top of the entire news agenda, where it wasn't before. I think there's a perception that when we take the actions that we do, it's like we don't like these things, and that couldn't be further from the truth. When we take action at sporting events or in art galleries or at monuments like this, we're doing so because we love these things and we want these things to continue, right? But we're in a situation where I think we've got to understand, and we've got to sort of like ask ourselves why it is that we're living in a society where oil and gas executives, for instance, aren't being, you know, dragged onto the media and then asked to justify their acts of criminal damage that are being imposed on all of us and are fundamentally going to result in the deaths of millions of people.
Do you think, from the answer you've just given there, do you think that the general public are going to take that message away from today's action? I mean, it's kind of the disconnect between action and then reception is, especially when we're seeing it on Twitter, or you're going to see it on whatever outlet you see it on, television, newspapers, tomorrow or tonight. And there will already be a spin put onto the story itself. So how do you believe that the actions themselves are actually having a cut through in the public, and having a positive reaction when it comes to public perception of your organization?
So we're not seeking positive perception of Just Stop Oil, right? What we're seeking to do is force this issue up the news agenda into the forefront of the public consciousness, and we have been very effective at that. We're now entering into a situation where the next UK government is likely to enact Just Stop Oil's original demand of no new oil and gas into legislation, right? So we have been very effective. Now, I understand why it can be confusing to people, but there's ample research on this that suggests that though people don't like Just Stop Oil, they tend to actually disassociate it from the issue itself. So generally, people will be going, "Oh, I don't like these Just Stop Oil folks," but actually, the issue of the climate crisis is really important, and something needs to happen about it. And actually, a lot of the time, the research goes, "Well, I'm not going to support Just Stop Oil, but I might support Friends of the Earth." And this is called the radical flank effect. It shifts the Overton window. It shifts the range of conversation that we are having in society. So now we're talking about oil and gas licenses and the need to enact an international legally binding treaty to end the extraction and burning of oil, gas and coal by 2030. That's at the top of the news agenda, where it wasn't before. Now the cornstarch will wash off the off Stonehenge, within a couple of days, but the damage that is being done to all of our communities by oil and gas executives and the politicians that they've bought is going to run on for many generations. And I think that we need to be having a discussion about what it is that we're prepared to do about that, given what's at stake.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the incoming government there. I just want to read you out Keir Starmer's response to the action today. He said on Twitter earlier on, "The damage done to Stonehenge is outrageous. Just Stop Oil are pathetic. Those responsible must face the full force of the law." What's your response to that?
Well, we are always accountable for our actions. We always sit and wait to be arrested. So we will face the full force of the law. What I would ask Keir Starmer is, when will the oil and gas executives responsible for the deaths of millions of people face the full force of the law?
You had mentioned that the incoming government have already accepted some of the original demands of Just Stop Oil from the earlier actions. Can you see a world where the actions that Just Stop Oil are taking now are going to be taken on by a Labour government in the next, between now and the 5 years down the line that they have?
I think that as civil unrest increases as a result of what's happening with the climate, there will be increasing political pressure to enact our demand. I think when we look back into the past, we look at Emily Davison throwing herself in front of the King's horse, for instance. I think many of us now accept that that was a necessary step in order to bring about rights for women. And I think many of us are glad that those people undertook the actions that they did. And I think that we need to be thinking about, how is all of this going to look in 50 years' time? When the anger and the outrage has died down about some cornstarch being put on Stonehenge, and there will be time to actually look at the reasons why we've done what we've done, and it will look very reasonable what we're asking, given what's at stake.
Are you and your colleagues apprehensive to take the action that you take, keeping in mind the current political reception of the organization itself? Is there a nervousness about going out and doing actions like this, knowing full well that the highest offices in the land will come out and demand not necessarily the toughest sentence possible, but a very heavy hand of the law to be put onto your shoulder after the actions?
Yes, it's absolutely terrifying. Yeah. But what's more terrifying is what's happening with the climate. Yeah. I think, many of us kind of understand the climate crisis in sort of this intellectual kind of way that it's this thing that's happening out there, rather than really kind of emotionally connecting with actually what it means for us. The fact that it's going to mean that we lose our family, it means that we lose our loved ones, it means that we lose everything in society that we care about, right? And we're at a point in history where we need to be asking, you know, what will our civilization leave behind? What is our legacy going to be? Because at this point, either we end the fossil fuel era, or the fossil fuel era is going to end us.